what are we going to do? And what was funny is, and this is something that I know you'll want to talk about, is so many of the open source developers treated this idea of asking our users to support us with money as like the worst idea anyone has ever raised. And I understand that because my background is open source more than anything else. Like, been in these communities since, I was like 14, and like, so I understand where they're coming from, but at the same time, like, if the community of folks who are volunteering can't actually maintain the software alone, then you need to like figure out a way to maintain it, because
Yep.
like, I don't think anybody wanted to see it go extinct, but they thought it was kind of um, maybe tacky or something to ask the users for money. I
Yeah.
don't know if there's a better word for that, but they just felt
Mm,
uncomfortable asking for money.
sure, sure.
And so that's what we ultimately did.
Yeah.
We managed to get on the same page, and I remember the first couple of appeals were like very small, very like,
Yeah, I only saw it when like the web page popped up with the UI update. Like what were the early
yep.
ones?
Well, we made it more prominent on the start page, which is the thing that shows up before you actually like choose an email.
Mhm.
And that helped. And then when we updated, I started including a donation link there on the update page, and it was small too, but it enough people clicked it that it made a pretty big difference. And so we're talking about, you know, a few $100,000 to then, okay, we had our first like well, I don't remember what it was, $1.2 million year.
Mhm.
And that sounds like a lot of money. And I love that the community, I love that everybody's like, man, the first when that happened, like, and I was the treasurer at the time on like Thunderbird Council too, so I produced the reports for the donations and everything. And I shared that out with the community, and they were like, Thunderbird's loaded. And I was like, well, if you start counting up where that money goes, because it's not just like you have $1 million, now you can hire 8 to 10 engineers or however many it is. Distributing Thunderbird costs money.
Mhm.
And the infrastructure to do that is pretty intense. And there's all these just costs around distributing this much software that is just pretty big in and of itself.
Well, just the fact that
And
you have like if you had 700,000 and you're like a some random terminal app like that, yeah, you would be loaded. But you have 20 million users. Like
yeah,
that by itself is expensive.
yeah. And there's like bug reports. Like, we still get slammed for not keeping up with bug reports.
Hmm.
20 million users produces a ton of bug reports. And we have folks who comb through them individually, and then we have systems that we build and constantly update to try and help us triage them. And like,
Hmm.
that alone is like, to your point, is an expensive activity,
Yeah, yeah.
because you want to catch the stuff that's like bad, like Thunderbird deleted an email that I didn't delete, or things like that. But combing through all of the reports to get to that is a gargantuan task. And but it worked, and it allowed me to continue to pitch ideas to everyone, like, can we do this, can we do that? And the golden place I wanted to get, which, like, let's show it in the
Hmm.
application to everyone.
Yeah.
And no one wanted to do that, like, do a full page thing. And I understand that, but I thought, okay, but if we do that once a year, I mean, Wikipedia, you know, a couple times a year takes over your, before you can even scroll to the content of the article, you get this big appeal from, Mr. Wales, and it says, we need your help.
Are they
And
on right now? I feel like they are. Let me have a look.
yeah, they are.
Yeah, okay.
But it's like, but I never felt angry about that. And that's what I was trying to tell folks is like, most of the time, if you see these appeals, people don't get angry. They just glance at it for a couple seconds and
Mhm.
then move on, or they donate. Like, those are the two things. And So ultimately, fortunately, folks agreed, and because you in this setting where the community has been running the project for multiple years, you don't do anything by there's no BDFL. I know the internet thinks that there is, but there really isn't. And so you kind of have to bring everybody along and convince them and have these conversations.
Mm-hmm.
And they're good conversations to have because it could be terrible. Like you could really exhaust people by like doing all these terrible pop-ups and things that annoy the hell out of people.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't want to do that, obviously, but and that was a few years on. That was in 2021, I think. Right? No. Well, 2021 we did a more aggressive update appeal.
Mm-hmm.
So we made it larger in the here's the update. This is what you get. By the way, like donate.
Mm-hmm.
And then last year, 2022, we did completely distinct. So we did the update one with the bigger, it's like here's your update. By the way, donate to support us. And then at the end of the year, we did, hey, Thunderbird needs you to stay alive and to provide a decent experience. And that was where we saw the big jump from like 2 point some million to 6 million.
Yeah.
And that was good. I mean, that was a good thing that we did, and to say that it has fixed a ton of problems in Thunderbird land would be a massive understatement.
So back in 2017, where it says 736,000, what did that mean for Thunderbird? Like, what sort of state was it in when it had that sort of funding? And then what sort of state is it in now where you have a lot more to work with?
Yeah. So when I came on, that was at 700 and some thousand.
Mm-hmm.
There were a couple places. The start page had a little appeal,
Mm-hmm.
and then there was a donate on the website, but we didn't ask like upfront. You just had to click the button and donate. And thank God people did it.
And like how far did that money really stretch with a project like Thunderbird?
So we had 3 people.
Mm-hmm.
I was part-time, so 2.5, I guess, and then paying for infrastructure, and that ate a lot of the money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and in that next year, that bump up, like that allowed us to add a couple more engineers, which started to help us. Like we got to the point where at least we're not broken all the time.
Right.
But every year that you see that go up is like a few more engineers, a few, less breakages that are holding back fixing bugs and rolling out features. But mostly it was that first category. It's like, if we're not broken, we can fix bugs.
Mm-hmm.
And that was for multiple years. And it wasn't really until the year before Supernova, 102, that I felt like we finally got to roll out some improvements to the actual way that Thunderbird works.
Mm-hmm.
So you're talking 4 years until we actually got to a place where we could look a little bit around and say, well, what can we fix? What are the things that would improve our users' lives beyond just like real true bugs that shouldn't be happening at all?
And I'm sure you've probably heard someone say, "Oh, if you have 700,000, think about all of the engineers you could hire with that, and obviously paying for the infrastructure as well." Like, look, you could hire way more people than that. Like, just run it on red, just as close to the line as possible. But I imagine the concern there would be, is the funding going to be consistent? Like, are we going to have enough the following year, or do we have to just fire a bunch of people? Like, can we actually do this?
People don't remember. I have gotten that before. People don't remember that you're talking about people's employments and their livelihoods, and you have a responsibility when you start hiring people, or even contracting, to at least be provide some level of stability, not just for them, actually, for the project too, because you can't make plans if you don't have some stability. So you are right. We always tried to be sustainable and to not count on us being as successful the following year as we were that year. And now everyone will tell you who has worked with me on Thunderbird that I'm incredibly optimistic. And I will gloat and say that I called every single within a very small margin of like 2% every single year our performance. And so on revenue. And so that was crazy optimism. And I admit that. Like lots of people told me, you're crazy, you can give it a try, but I don't think that's going to work. But what I always plan for in the back of my head is like, in actually budgeting it out, what happens if that doesn't materialize?
Right.
What do I have planned already for if we do half that we did last year? Because I thought there's always a chance that we've saturated the people who want to donate, and that they're not going to donate next year because they're like, I already gave, they're fine, everything's fine, like I don't need to give this year. Or I remember doing the budgeting when COVID was just in China, and I remember there were some headlines like maybe it will get out, maybe that this will be really bad. And I remember thinking when I was budgeting that year, like, okay, what if that kicks off some kind of really bad recession where folks they're like, I've got enough problems, I'm not going to donate to Thunderbird.
Imagine
like that's the last thing on my mind.
Imagine that happening.
But and it says in the budget that year, it says something like in the document itself, like that I submitted to the council, the Thunderbird Council is the community governing body.
Yep.
Something along the lines of, this accounts for, the potential of a global recession from, I don't remember how I put it in there, but, and what I was wrong in that we did have the pandemic, but people were stuck in their house in front of their computer, which actually had, I think, the opposite effect, where people were like staring at Thunderbird for a lot of time every day, and they're like, they see these appeals or whatever, and they're like, yeah, okay, like, sure, like I'm still working. Not everybody, but a lot of folks who were using Thunderbird for work, where they're working, they're like, I'm not spending my money on going out and stuff. I can give Thunderbird $5, and that really helped. But that's a long-winded way of acknowledging that you're right. We always planned and we always had runway for 1 year, and we still do. For 1 year, if donations completely stop, we have 1 year where if zero was coming in, we would have the runway to figure that out and to adjust course.